I'm Annie Elison. Welcome to Kauai on YouTube.
To Kauai.
Life is short. Buy the beach house. Live the dream. I've been thinking a lot about the difference between the Hawaii real estate purchase contract and the purchase contracts in other parts of the world. Real estate purchase contracts differ from state to state, but these are the ones that my clients are most often surprised with because they've bought and sold a lot of real estate. These are the things that are a little bit different. Please like and subscribe below. One of the first things that will be surprising when you see the purchase contract is there are 27 different timelines. 27 different timelines where one thing has to happen in the contract to stay in contract, which means to be compliant with the agreement that you've signed. Now, you don't need to worry about that. I'm going to manage it for you, and you will get a timeline once you're in escrow, so it'll all be spelled out to you, and you'll know when everything's due. But 27 is a lot of timelines within a contract. And how long is that contract going to be? A typical cash escrow on Kauai is 30 days. You hear stories about people closing with cash on the mainland in 3 days. That never happens here. I wrote an offer once that was super clean cash with a 10-day close, and we actually couldn't close faster than 13 days. It's just the time that it takes to get the title report, to make sure there's a clean title, even the basic things. You're going to need a little time to do it. So 30 days in Hawaii is considered a fast close. If you're financing, a typical closing timeline would be 45 to 60 days, right? That's 2 weeks to a month longer than it is in most mainland markets. Totally normal here on Kauai. I often like to say to my clients, just remember, everything on Kauai takes a little bit longer, including inspection periods. So it would be typical to have a 14 to 15 day inspection period. Now, one thing that's different besides the length of that is that's your entire inspection period. So that's the amount of time you have to inspect the property, determine if you want to ask for any repairs, and negotiate those repairs. The negotiation for repairs does not happen outside of those 14 to 15 days. It happens during it. Another thing that people are often concerned about, especially if they're buying in a master plan community, single family home or a condo, are the HOA rules and regulations, right? People will say, is an assessment coming up? What if they have crazy rules? In the Hawaii real estate contract, it is generally written that the seller will have to provide us with all the HOA documents, including minutes from the last meetings and 20 other documents. If you read the minutes of HOA documents for the last couple of meetings, you should know if there's an assessment coming up and if there's one you need to be worried about. That's where they're going to discuss any future projects that they're thinking about doing an assessment for. So it's important to understand that in the Hawaii real estate purchase contract, you will be provided the HOA documents and you will have a period of time to review them. And if you find things that you're unhappy with, you can cancel based on that information. I typically write it that the sellers will provide it within 10 days and that the buyers will have 10 days to review it. It usually takes at least 7 to 10 days to get it from the HOA companies. It does take some time, and then you have enough time to review it, investigate any details you need clarification on, and decide what you want to do. In the Hawaii real estate purchase contract, there are many outs for a buyer. And sometimes sellers believe that they can get out of a real estate purchase contract too, which is generally speaking incorrect. The only outs for a seller in the Hawaii real estate contract is at a few points if the buyer is not compliant with the contract. For example, in the Hawaii real estate purchase contract, a buyer states when they will have conditional loan approval, which in our contract includes the appraisal. Let's say the appraisal was late, it wasn't turned in on time, and the buyer's conditional loan approval is running a little late. If you don't have it by your contractual date, the seller can cancel the contract. It's one of two outs for a seller in the Hawaii real estate contract. The other one would be final loan approval, right? If you don't have final loan approval by the date that you've agreed to have it, the seller can cancel. Buyers coming from California, they'll ask, well, when have I waived all contingencies? We don't do that in Hawaii. You don't waive all contingencies at any time. Even if you're buying a property as is, all the contingencies go. You could write an amendment saying you want all the contingency waived by a certain date, but I haven't seen that happen, and it would be very unusual. One other thing that's very important in closing that's very different from any other state is that in Hawaii, all of your closing documents and all of the funds, your funds and your lender's funds, have to be at the title company 3 days before closing. So if you're closing on Friday, you're not going to go to the title company Friday morning and sign your documents and hand them a check. Both parties have signed the closing documents Monday, Tuesday, or even earlier, giving the title company enough time to request the funds from your lender and for you to wire in your funds to close. All the funds, your lender's funds, your funds, have to be at the title company along with all the signed closing documents 3 days before closing. So if you're closing on Friday, everything has to be there on Wednesday. Sometimes I'll have clients that want to come out for closing. If they're not here already, I tell them not to do that because you're not going to be able to go to the property for 3 days. So you might as well just come once the property's yours and you can move in.